Okay, we have now moved to the point at which you all are waiting for us to outline our thoughts and priorities for the year. As chair, newly elected, I have the privilege of going first with this, and let me just say that it is wonderful to be returning to a board year with Mr. Gutschall, Ms. Crystal, and Ms. Garvey. We did some great work last year, and I know that it will continue. And a warm welcome to Mr. DeFerranti, who we don't yet know what your board service will look like, but given the first vote you cast tonight, I have high hopes that you will exceed expectations. So, you know, our gathering tonight, just one day after we've turned the calendar for 2019 and marking the debut of a new board member as well as new leadership for this board, really focuses our attention a lot on what is to come. I'd like to take a moment, however, to look back at 2018, for it was both a notable year and it also is one that very much informs the perspectives that I will share with you tonight. Now, among our many successes and noteworthy achievements from the last year, were Arlington becoming designated the first ever platinum level community in the world by the United States Green Building Council, an affirmation of our progressive efforts toward environmental sustainability. We worked and we enacted changes in our real estate tax relief program that benefits seniors and the permanently disabled so that the program could be administered more efficiently while also providing more equitable support for those vulnerable populations. Our efforts in housing were substantial in creating opportunities for middle and lower income Arlingtonians to live in our community. 90 units were added to what will be a community of 250, almost 250 homes within walking distance of Metro, a key way of making sure our affordable housing investments are actually married with our transportation investments so that those can be shared by everyone. And just as importantly, we enacted changes to our zoning ordinance that remove barriers people face when needing to improve their homes that are designated non-conforming, allowing them to stay in those homes longer and preventing wholesale redevelopment of them. And on the economic development front, the equivalent of two vacant high-rise, or the equivalent of two high-rise office buildings were saved from vacancy with the attraction of new and the retention of existing office tenants. And our engagement efforts with the community continue to move forward. Initiatives like Ms. Crystal's Big Idea Roundtables, virtual town halls, and partnerships with community organizations like the Community Progress Network, which purposefully and successfully brought new, diverse voices to our community conversations. We also had failures, most notably the forced closure of the Northside Salt Facility. Hello there, Mr. Schwartz, which required swift actions to maintain winter weather operations that were not the product of deliberative planning and community involvement. But overall, we must remember that we are doing well, quite well in fact. Residential satisfaction with government services nears 90%, placing Arlington in an elite class compared to other communities in the survey. Now, our resident satisfaction survey validates that Arlingtonians place a high premium and value on our physical assets and infrastructure. And in 2019, we must keep our focus on making sure that these are maintained in a state of good repair so that we can maximize the time that we actually use these assets while minimizing unplanned disruptions due to emergency repair or replacement. But yet, when I think about the fundamental programs and services that we deliver, we are in an unfortunate position this year because those costs of delivering those services significantly exceed our revenues. There are many reasons that we find ourselves in this situation. Primarily, sustained weakness in the office sector is depressing our overall tax base. And even though last year the region achieved a landmark victory in securing sufficient metro capital funding, we are paying substantially higher operating subsidies, at least in the near term. Thankfully, the Commonwealth of Virginia also did a wonderful landmark thing by expanding Medicaid, but that too came with an increase in local funding obligations. The result of all of this is that the cost of delivering government services and public education in fiscal year 2020 will require closing a combined county APS budget gap of as high as $70 million. The only responsible course for us is fiscal austerity. Now, last year, we eliminated some programs and reorganized others, and the manager was able to find savings that amounted to about $14 million. Now, eliminating and reorganizing more programs again in fiscal year 20 will still leave us with a substantial gap. We need our partners, our friends at Arlington Public Schools to find significant savings, and we will still be left with wrestling with the fundamental decision of reducing services that we know Arlingtonians expect and value, or raising revenues through a property tax increase. And this is just to deliver the same level of service. Clearly, this year, the responsible course is fiscal austerity, but that austerity must not translate into stagnation. We must help the region, help lead the region, develop housing policies that will create a larger supply of affordable homes if we are ever to meet the goals of our ambitious but absolutely attainable affordable housing master plan. We must continue our commitment to the sort of digital customer service focused innovation that will make county government more efficient and responsive. And we must develop the capacity to understand the emerging mobility trends in the market so that we can better manage our public spaces and our public rights of way. We have a need to do more. In a region and in a community that is ever evolving, we always must do more, but our resources are constrained. This is our current reality, but we have to absolutely make sure it is not our new normal. To do so requires restoring our commercial sector to good health so that we can grow our revenues. And that is the principle that guided our competing for Amazon's corporate headquarters expansion. Having a planned investment of $2.5 billion to support 25,000 jobs in an area with the capacity to support that level of growth is a significant catalyst toward our emerging from those austerity budgets and conditions that I described. And we are landing this investment without diverting any existing revenues, while receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from the state to support our transportation and housing priorities. But for Amazon to serve as a springboard for more opportunities for all Arlingtonians, we have to expertly manage its growth. That means ensuring that the changes it brings to the built environment reflect the vision of our existing plans, and that we prevent the displacement of residents and businesses, or that we prevent the diminishment of the quality of life for all of those who already call Arlington home. Now, I know that every member of this board is committed to ensuring that Amazon's gradual growth over the next decade or more benefits all of us. But when we look at it, Amazon, along with our budget gaps that we're realizing today, it presents us with the dual responsibility of ensuring that today's austerity doesn't disproportionately burden the most marginalized and the most vulnerable among us, and that the better times ahead don't leave those same people behind. To do so requires that we rethink how we develop and deploy government services, regulations, programs, and actions. We must imbue our public policy with an emphasis on equity. Now, I know with pride that Arlington defied efforts many decades ago to maintain segregation in public facilities, and that our vision has long affirmed the inherent value of all persons. We are the caretakers of a legacy that profoundly rejected discrimination. Yet even in Arlington, disparities do exist based on social status, and we can see it in health and wellness outcomes, We can see it in educational achievement and many other factors in one's ability to lead a secure and fulfilling life. These disparities matter. They matter most of all for the people who have to deal with the inequities, but they should matter to everyone, because our collective well-being is compromised when people are prevented from reaching their full potential. So to operationalize this idea of bringing an equity lens to our public policy requires that we do a number of things. But primarily it begins first with measuring disparities by making sure we're collecting the necessary data and fully analyzing and reporting on those data so that the broad successes that we know typify Arlington don't mask the very real challenges that people face. And we have to recognize and report on who benefits from and who is burdened by the actions that we all make and the decisions that we make. We have to make sure we report on that in our budget documents. We have to make sure we report on that when we consider land use decisions, when we make appropriations, develop legislation, or engage our public civically. But we also have to repair the damage that inattention to equity has already done by supporting efforts to convene voices and perspectives that we don't often hear in public discourse. Now, I am pleased that Virginia Humanities is supporting Arlington in creating educational and dialogue opportunities to understand the historical and current inequities in our community. I look forward to our supporting those efforts to the greatest possible extent. But ensuring a focused emphasis on equity is going to require the commitment at all levels of county government. And the good news is, under Mark Schwartz's leadership, there have been several efforts that have already been undertaken and are underway. Last year, we had a pilot program that we're going to look to extend in 2019, connecting committed affordable apartment communities to broadband, a key component in actually bridging the digital divide. We are fortunate that our APS partners long ago recognized that putting devices in the hands of all students was an important thing to do. We're taking it to the next level in making sure the places that they live are actually connected so that they can use those devices. Without that, we've minimized the very forward-thinking and importance of those investments that they made in our children several years ago. We've also concluded a year-long planning effort, mostly by citizen volunteers, to identify health disparities, to develop an action plan so that over the next 10 years we can actually eliminate them. We've had our Department of Parks and Recreation, which has developed flexibility in the payment terms and the requirements for parent participation in county-sponsored preschool and out-of-school time activities. And our libraries have focused and developed their programming so that that programming can be community-centered and focused, and that B, they engage in conscious, thoughtful, proactive outreach to make sure all who can benefit have an opportunity to participate. Now, this is not all that we're doing on the equity front, but these initiatives and many others haven't required any increases in spending, but they have succeeded in focusing our efforts on delivering needed services where they will have the most impact and that target the inequities that come from doing business as usual. Now, by adopting equity as a guiding principle of our government, we make government work better for all. And to work for all means that one's race, national origin, gender, sexual identity, disability, religion, neighborhood, family structure, or any other social status, those social indicators are not to be predictive of adverse outcomes. Now, our community has long been united in believing this. Now it's time for us to actually start achieving it. Thank you very much, and I will now turn to our Vice Chair, Libby Garvey.
I think that deserves a round of applause, though.